we're going to pass around the clipboard again. The clipboard it does not matter if I sit up here and talk for 2 hours, there will still be at least 2 hours of questions. So Oriana and I are doing a like Q&A after the show, after this on Zoom for everyone who has questions about Kickstarter. If you've already signed up yesterday, you can be an eager beaver and do it again, but like it's still going to go to the same list. But if you have missed it yesterday, or you weren't in one of my sessions, or you don't know if you're going to be like a lot of people have questions next week. Like they're so full up of information, they don't even have a thing. So like if you're just like, I'm overwhelmed by this whole thing, probably by the time we do the call, you'll be like, oh yeah, I had a chance to think about it, and I do have 78 questions. So just let me start with you. Come on, pass it that way, back into that and forth. Well, I recognize what you're saying. I know you're trustworthy, so let's start. Yes, absolutely. Also have a bunch of replays for stuff that we've done for the launch that we're doing, which is like, we did a 2-hour stream on like, who should use Kickstarter? I mean, it could be answered in 5 minutes. Everyone, yes, your project will work on Kickstarter. Like, yes, your genre will work on Kickstarter. Yes, your idea will work on Kickstarter. The only thing is depends on what the bandwidth is that you have, or the bandwidth that like your audience has. But like everyone should and could start doing this. Do you have a question?
Will the slideshow be available later, like in PDF or notes? I take pictures of it.
I believe that the thing will be streamed at some point.
Yes, that is true, yes.
And also, if you sign up for the thing, I'll send you the repo link for all of our other stuff, and then you can reply to back that, like, remember, like, I would like the slide deck, and I will give it to you and anyone else, but I am not publicly making it available. So if you guys are like, wow, I really like this, I want to listen to you talk for a lot more today, you can go to our 20Books, to kickstarternovel.com/20Books. That's the schedule for the rest of the day. Between Monica and I, we have 6 talks today and a Kickstarter meetup at 4:30 in our suite, room 2061A. So, yes, you'll be able to see just tons of Monica and I today if you so choose. And then, for me, there's also, for this, relevant to this, there's a Kickstarter panel that I'm on with Patty Finn, Kevin Anderson, myself, Oriana, and fourth, Dean Wesley Smith. That's at 2. And then we have the Kickstarter meetup today is at 4:30 in our suite. Maybe it's 2:30. It may be 2:30. Okay. If you go to that website I showed you, there's like a billion things today, and it's very possible that I got the timing wrong because I generally don't have 20 things to do in a day. Well, Patty's doing 1, then I have 3, and Oriana's doing 1, so that's 5, I guess, at minimum. Plus, I don't think there was a Kickstarter specific meetup last year, and there's one this year, so like next year it's going to be all Kickstarter. Just no Facebook ads, just all Kickstarter. going to start pretty immediately at 8:15, just so you know. I usually like to wait for like a minute or two for stragglers, but I don't have that kind of time today. There is a lot to get through. This is like 4 times bigger than last year's thing, so I'm very excited. We were in the big room for a panel. You know, often the big room is provided for Kickstarter. Oriana from Kickstarter was like, wow, this is the biggest you've ever been at Kickstarter. And she literally has been at Kickstarter for almost a decade.
I was going to say, before we get started, just a reminder, the mics are hot the whole time. So let's let everyone at home hear some spicy stuff, but just so you know that they are hot. It's really helpful if you have a question.
If you are at home and you're like, well, I want to come to this 20Books thing, but like you have clearly completely alienated me, I'm sorry. I literally came up with this idea yesterday, 5 minutes before the panel, and you can go to kickstartyournovel.com and you should be able to sign up for a regular mailing list. And then I'll just make an assumption that if you are joining our mailing list between today, tomorrow, and the end of the conference, you probably heard about this through 20Books. I guess also if we're at home, we have a Facebook group called Advanced Strategies for Kickstarter Authors or something like that, and that is also available on Facebook. The thesis statement is if you want to learn about Kickstarter outside of this conference, I'm more than happy to send you a lot of information about that.
Perfect.
Last thing I will say, before all the things I will say, is usually I stop when I do this presentation between each section to answer questions. There's 5 sections for 5 places. Because there's so much information here, and I want to make sure you get it, so at least you can listen to it later and we're doing the Q&A anyway. I'm going to wait until the end to take questions, but I will try to speed through this and answer as many as I can at the end. No, I lied. I have another thing to say. We also have a podcast. I keep forgetting that we have a podcast, and people are very excited about podcasts. So our podcast is called Kickstart Your Book Sales. It's 85 episodes of Monica and I talking about Kickstarter. You might say, you have 85 episodes about one platform. How is it even possible? You're going to see I'm very loquacious anyway, as a rule. And I like being the center of attention, part 2. But 3 is just a large topic, and it requires reframing your brain around probably everything you've learned about being a successful author. Because a lot of the things that work really well on Kickstarter are like the opposite of what happens on retailers. It's a platform, like on retailers, you're much more a commodity. And in Kickstarter, your job is to stand out. So blend in, stand out require 2 different strategies of life. So anyway, all right, counting down the seconds now.
You're nothing but this guy's here.
All right, so we are getting started. For people that just came in, there's a sign-up sheet for a Q&A we're doing after this con with Oriana. Sign up if you want, don't if you don't. If you're at home, kickstartyournovel.com, you can sign up for a mailing list, and I will also put you on that list to be on the replay or to be on the Q&A. This is 5 places you make money during your Kickstarter campaign. I'm Russell. I help authors make money on Kickstarter. Very congruent with like the title of this slide. I've raised $400,000 by myself. Been involved with personally over $300,000 of other projects that have raised money, and then through our accelerator, we've had over $1 million run through it in the past year for people that have made money on Kickstarter. So when it comes to books and other things publishing, I know my thing. Because my thesis statement here is the book that started the nonfiction part of our business and my relationship with Monica Leonel, my business partner. If you know anything about nonfiction, you know like that number down there, 21,000, is usually what a series makes over the course of a year. We did it in a month for one book. So that's the kind of opportunity that's available. And then also, you have all sorts of ways on top of that for making money. We actually raised over $24,000 on that campaign alone because of all of the stuff I'm going to show you today. More social proof. Here is Kickstarter, my biggest book that I did on myself. It's an anthology about Lovecraft monsters. And then this is the one that Monica and I ran this year, $41,000. That's $115 per person. Yes, we will talk about how that is possible. In all, we've actually raised over 130 campaigns and over $1 million raised, including, if you know Sky Warren's campaigns, she's one of our clients. Her campaign has just hit $129,000 in like 2 weeks. No, it's not right. It's the opposite. Sorry, we need to cause you guys flat strobe lights. So where was it? Okay. We've seen a lot of campaigns of all types flow through our program, and we've raised over $1 million in the past year. So all the things I'm going to tell you are kind of the best practices across every campaign that we've seen, from romance and sci-fi and nonfiction, from many different kinds, all the kinds of publishing we do. So there are 5 parts of a Kickstarter campaign, and we're going to talk about how to make money in each of them. Starting with pre-launch, and then launch, and then the dead zone, and then last days, and then fulfillment, and then hopefully we will have time for questions. We are going to start with pre-launch. Oh, really far, that's 2 minutes. In 2 minutes I did all that? It usually takes like 25 minutes. Yes! It means I can probably slow down. So pre-launch. What is the pre-launch and how do you make money? Pre-launch is everything before your launch. And the ways that you make money in it is getting backers to your pre-launch page, asking your audience to review your campaign page, building excitement basically so you make the most money on launch day and can get the most out of the recommendations engine and the algorithms and such. I'll wait for a second because I know I just said a whole bunch of words actually. You may want to write those things down. And then we'll move on to show you what examples of a pre-launch page is. And basically, once you have your campaign set up, there are 5 main sections: basics, rewards, story. Then you have to talk about yourself and your funding. Once you have those 5 things set for a campaign, you can get your campaign approved, and then you can set your pre-launch page, which is this page. I showed you a whole bunch of different kinds to show, like sometimes you have 100, sometimes there are 40, sometimes there are 1,600 backers. That's one's probably like unrealistic for most authors in their first campaign. This is like one of the most popular books that Kickstarter has ever done as a comic. And basically, your job is to optimize 3 things, because they're the only 3 things that someone sees on this page. 1 is the image. 2 is the headline, and 3 is the log line. If you're like, wow, Russell, that really seems like the 3 things that you have to optimize in Facebook ads. That's absolutely accurate. So if you're good at Facebook ads, this should be real easy for you. There is a recommendation engine where people can discover upcoming projects on the platform. That one, Monica's, which is which Sisterhood romance novels and tarot deck, she has done almost no promotion for that book, except that book. She hasn't sent it really out to her list. She's had it up for a couple months. She'll have it up until February. That campaign is over 200 backers, 200 followers, just from like the way that it is promoted and the keywords that she used. So like it is a Jane Austen retelling, they're very popular in romance. There's a tarot deck, it's very popular on Kickstarter. and the log line is really catchy and snappy. So yeah, that's your pre-launch page. This is not the page that backers will see once it's live. It's just the most simple version of, like, basically, will someone with very little information click and be interested? If they will, then you probably will do well in the recommendation engine. If you do this poorly, then you will not find followers, just like you won't get clicks on your Facebook ads. Sure. Okay, so the one at the top left is mine. It says, fantasy novel filled with magic, ghost, action, adventure, and true love. Join Anna, and as she sets out to save the world from itself. It's a fantasy, and then the title is all sorts of, it was a Witchtober, was a promotion they were running. It's a novel, it's heavily romance. So I used keywords, Google Trends and such to like figure out what the best keywords were, and then just my own gut, because I've run so many of these campaigns. You can see if someone wants to read that thing, all the things that I just said, and that it would be very easy for them to find it. It'd be easy for them to click on it. It'd be easy for them to get excited for it. Whether they are if they're in my audience, yes, but also if they're just searching the page.
Is it Russell? We cannot read the bottom.
I gotta go. Sorry, I gotta like keep going here. Like you could, these will be available on on YouTube, and then I said I will also send the deck to anyone who asks for it later. Okay, so the second question is that people ask, okay, that's great. Like, what does this mean, and how am I making money on it? Well, so this is the average that we have found in our group for 100 pre-launch followers. Now, this does not necessarily a bell curve. If it's 20, if you get 20, you're probably not going to make $2,500. You probably will actually make a little bit more because the first backers are your most ardent, and those ones are going to be maybe spending $500 or $1,000. Or, but if you have I have a degree in statistics, so I like to find like what creates a nice, pretty bell curve that we can track, and we have found that if you have about 100 pre-launch followers, it translates to about $5,000 to $15,000, depending on the kind of project that you run. So a project that is this one novel here doesn't have a ton of formats. I only had it live for 2 weeks. It only will be on the low end side. If you have like a series or an anthology where a bunch of people are involved, like that puts you on the higher end of that. I know that's a large range. Most of the time I tell people to factor in on the low end of that range, because you're probably in your first campaign going to end up on the low end of the range. Which leads to the next question. Well, that's great, Russell. Like, what is the conversion of this? Good news is that in the dashboard of Kickstarter, you can see all of the conversions that you've ever done from follower to converted follower. That's what I mean by conversion. How many people follow the campaign? How many people of those are converted into backers? And that number is generally going to be 20 to 40%. If your number is above 40%, what that usually means is you can do more promotion because you're not getting very far outside of your own audience. So we've seen like 45, 50, I mean, I have people that say 60%, and I'm like, that's terrible. That means like you're not doing enough promotion to get outside of that range so enough people come into your ecosystem, learn about it, and then like want to convert. On the low end, if you're below 20%, you probably need to do a bunch of like optimizations that we'll talk about in the next thing on your launch page, because you should be able to get 20% of followers if you follow like our system or like the best practices of how to do this. And that's kind of, if you talk about like, okay, what we did before was optimize our Facebook ads. This is like optimizing our sales page to make sure you're actually like converting the people that click into buyers. If you don't know what that is, it means you're not running Facebook ads, and that's probably very okay, but you want to aim for about 20 to 40% of conversions. Now what Kickstarter does not have is a good thing of saying, well, how much money is that? So because part of this is, are they a digital backer? Are they a physical backer? Like Are they in your existing audience or not? So people that already have all your books are going to probably back for less than a new person who wants to get everything. Cool? All right, so then I'm going to go in here. This first part of this page, the first question you have to ask, what this pre-launch page is doing is answering the question, is there interest in my book? How much and how much? And how is it doing that aside from what we're talking about is our best practice with our students is to have this live for 4 weeks and send 4 emails across the course of those 4 weeks that link here to this page so you can see how many people and how fast you are converting. So this one had 117 followers, it raised $5,000. That's right in the range of what I was talking about before. But I have a lot of people in my existing audience that bought this. But the idea is, okay, I sent one email and it got 50 followers. That means I probably have a bunch of people on my email list that already know about Kickstarter, because you have to have an account in order to get notified. It also says, wow, maybe I should make this campaign shorter or longer. It could say, okay, there's a lot of interest. I want to go out to cold audiences to more podcasts. I want to do more marketing because it will probably convert well. As opposed to, it doesn't show you how many people are following you on this page until you have 10, but you can see it in the dashboard. If you have 10 people after the 3rd week, probably want to put your campaign off for a minute, or adjust your projections, or have it only run for a week, because it's not going to be a high converting project. In the course we have it across 4 weeks because we want to see whether you have sustained trajectory as well. So if you have 50 week 1, 50 week 2, 50 week 3, it means you if you keep putting these emails out, you will, if you start doing Facebook posts and such, it is a good continuous conversion. Oh, okay, every time I show this to people that are interested, a consistent percentage back, will follow every week. If this goes from 50 to 3, then we have to do then we have to be okay, I have a big rabid fan base who will come on quickly, but I don't have people, I need to do some work on the page because it's not converting new people or people that aren't already excited well. Does that make sense? Okay. Part 2 is launch week. Should be kind of easy to tell you how you make money on launch week because you launch and then it's money. But how do you optimize that? One is the funding on the first day, then hitting funding markers throughout your first week so that you can judge things like stretch goals. People always ask, well, how do I announce stretch goals? Or should I announce them at the beginning? I would say that's really silly, because what if you run through all of your stretch goals in the first week, like Sarah Rosette did? What if you have a goal that's so high and they'll never get to any stretch goal? So part of this funding markers is okay, how do I continue to release my marketing throughout the campaign? Not just ooh, there's a bunch of money here. Also consistency. A lot of people that do Amazon probably will resonate with a lot of this stuff because it will sound familiar. Making money over the first 5 days, consistency, is very helpful for the recommendation engine and the algorithm. So if you've done this on Amazon, this is similar but much more effective because you're making $25 to $50 every person that backs on average, as opposed to $2 to $7 for everyone that buys. Getting things like Project We Love or Project of the Day. I don't think that not getting this is that detrimental, but that you can search people can search by projects we love. And being as many places as people can search as possible is good. So optimizing your campaign for that. Using stretch goals, backer rewards, flash goals, and more. This is what I was talking about hitting funding markers. After that first, we can be okay, here's where I'm going, here's where I am. I'm probably going to hit somewhere between 2 and 3x after the first week for my total campaign. How do I want to, like, what does that mean? Is that $100 a day, $50 a day? And then how do I, how do I release these kind of perks throughout the campaign so that like I can bring back the excitement when the excitement dips? Okay, so here's a really important graph to show of the release week. So this is a website called KickTrack, which tracks every campaign. I don't know if they did forever, but like so for a very long time, how much it raises every day, how many comments there are, how many backers there were each day. And you can see in this launch curve, the most important part of the campaign is this first 3 to 5 days. Because when you set once you set your sort of what your path is, it's going to continue on that path roughly until the end, or you're going to get another spike. So like a Brandon Sanderson campaign looks like this. It's just like 500 times higher, probably like way more than 500 times higher, but it will still settle. What happens is it settles higher. So instead of settling at like $300 a day, it settles at like $1 million a day. And that is because over the course of your campaign, more people are finding out about it. The higher it is at the beginning, the more excitement there is, and the easier it is to be like those people perpetuate more people. But more importantly, this is how you get recommended throughout the algorithm. Now the algorithm is much simpler, and there's a lot more hand curation than there is on Amazon or on the other platforms, but this is a platform. It is very important to understand that Monica launched this book on a new platform with a new account and raised $21,000 in that first month. Now, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, like Google Play, if you launch a book on one of those platforms and you hit $5 often, but like $500 in that first month, like you are destroying that platform. Like, so when you think about this platform, like it's a platform that has the ability to put way more money than any other white platform in your pocket in a very short amount of time. Okay, so that's great, Russell, but how does Kickstarter recommend all of this stuff? A lot of ways. As I said in the top left, this is all of the ways. If you go to Kickstarter.com, I think it's /discover, but in the top left there's a little button that says discover, pops down with all of these options. You can say project we love, nearly funded, just launched. You can also search by all of these sort of categories inside. You can search by every category, so publishing, comics, or you can also sort by like little subcategories inside that one, like fiction. So the more of the things we talked about, project of the day, if there's any promotions going on, you can get into, like they put that in its own little section, and each of those little sections can then like add little amounts of money for different referral codes. What's cool is going into your dashboard and just seeing all the referral codes that like come from the different areas of both Kickstarter and outside referrers. And I always say, like, for every backer that you bring from outside of Kickstarter, Kickstarter will bring one from Kickstarter. Roughly, it's about 50% of the money comes from the little green Kickstarter recommendation engines and like outside referrers as well. That's not a perfect graph because a lot of times your backers are going into the Kickstarter app to do that, but also sometimes Kickstarter is being like, people will find a campaign outside and like instead of going through the Kickstarter app, they'll go straight to the link. So like generally it works out that about 50% of the money comes from Kickstarter and its referrers and 50% comes from your outside efforts. Which again, if you bring 25 people the first week, that's a lot, and you have a 3-week campaign, that's a lot that Kickstarter can kick in. If you have 25 people over the like 3 weeks of the campaign, then that's just less time for Kickstarter to do the work, to like recommend you to more places and to do more things. Does that make sense? Very much probably sounds like how most of you are using Amazon and other retailers right now. That is the best takeaway you could have. If you only get that takeaway that this is a platform that you can exploit in the way that you exploit Amazon and other platforms, then that is the differentiating factor that I want. Then the bottom right is the publishing project of the day. Every category has its own project of the day that stays up all day. But look right there on the right side, those are all projects that we're recommending. So like the earlier you can get into the, like have a good launch, the more recommendations you'll get in that first page. It's also, and then on the right side, every time someone scrolls down to the bottom of a page, they see 4 recommendations. I almost said like on Amazon, but like actually not. Like Amazon used to be. When someone backs a campaign, on the bottom right, they're given 3 or 4 projects to back, other projects to back. It says something like keep the party going, and it like lists other campaigns that are very much like the other campaigns. When you back a campaign, you see that's the ones recommended for you. Like we have 4 new projects every time you back a project. And so in the same way that people that buy a thing, like want to buy another thing, that was at least the theory behind also bots, which I think is the correct theory, but Amazon clearly disagrees because they want money, and that's fine, money's fine. But this is how the higher you get that first week, the higher you get, the quicker you get, the more times, the more chances you have to be recommended, which is why it's so important to do that pre-launch process, because the more people that back at the beginning, which is why I did a little slide on early birds, but probably people are, what is an early bird? It's people, so when people back early, you generally give them additional perks, like I get a bookmark once, I get a print once, I get a, things. Free ebooks is usually what I do. Like I go to my friends and do like, we have an ebook exchange in the course, so, but things to get people to back early and off the fence. Also doing that education beforehand. So if you have like a very low trajectory launch, or for your pre-launch page, you probably need to do a lot of education about Kickstarter to the people that are in your audience. But I've very much seen campaigns that have a much older audience having success on Kickstarter. They do tend to have to take 2 or 3 months in pre-launch instead of 1 month because they need to get more people on the platform. All right, the biggest question here, again, if you're taking the Facebook ads or Amazon course, this is the conversion question. Like, okay, I get people are signing up to get notified. Is equal to, I'm getting my clicks. Like the clicks are good, but the sales aren't working. So this is where you have to make sure that you are, have rewards that are clear and concise, the page looks great, video looks great, so that people are converting at the amount that you want them to. This is easily the place that we help you the most in the campaign, because there's a process to how people go through a Kickstarter page that makes them more likely to buy basically anything. And we're very good at showing you how. But that's the general idea, is if you're getting clicks, but they're not converting, you need to work on your page. If you're sending people to your page and they're not clicking, then you need to fix your pre-launch page. Because that pre-launch page, the 3 things I said, I told you about, the headline, the log line, and the image, are the 3 things that people see when they scroll. So if they're not converting to interest or notifications, it means that they're seeing your page, your blurb, your headline, and your image, and they're like, no, okay. And then but that's sort of the 2 parts of this process. If you can get those conversions at 20 or 40%, then you're doing pretty well. You just need to keep scaling and keep going. Okay, third, dead zone is a Stephen King book. It is also the scariest part of the Kickstarter campaign, because you stop making the money. It's that dip. All the adrenaline, it wears off, and you're just like, oh, but I like the money. I want the more money. How do I keep doing the money? And this is the doing the money part. 3 things that'll help you in your dead zone: change your message, change your offer, change your audience. So this is nothing against this campaign up there. I forgot once again to wipe it out, but I wanted to show you a campaign that was long. It had a lot of zeros. If those zeros were all turned to $25 or $50, that's the potential of $1,000 or more to that campaign. When you maximize your dead zone, like we talked about in the book and the course and all other things, you see something more like the bottom. Just 500 is not 7,400. I would like 7,400 every day too. That'd be great. But just adding these little bits to a campaign every day does add up, especially if you're wide. You probably notice that any one platform is But like 10 platforms together, like all build up on top of each other. Even small numbers can add up to big numbers. So when you're talking about how much you can raise in the dead zone, a properly executed dead zone should raise a third of the money for your campaign. So when you look at our campaign for this, or for especially for, I did the numbers for our Get Your Book Selling Kickstarter campaign. A third of the money came from this first week, a third came from that last week, and a third came from the middle weeks. And so there wasn't, the middle weeks are the longest weeks, but like if you don't focus on this part, like you could literally be losing out on a third of your campaign. Okay, so what do I mean by change your message? Well, here's all different things that you can talk about in your campaign pages. We have templates in the course, like talking about, okay, so most people do the blurb. And you're like, okay, but let's go deeper. Like, what is this book really about? Like, where did it come from? Where's the back? Like what is the backstory? This top left was, people didn't seem to realize that even though I was talking about the complete series of my last book, that there was another volume of it. So I had to go back and say, okay, there's a never before seen book. This is a book that you've not seen, and I did not do a good job of marketing it the first time. The top right is, most people will know the main character, or if you're doing romance or something that has multiple points of view, like the main duo of your character is probably in your play. There's all these ancillary characters that are in your book that make your book unique from anything else in the market. But you could do a whole series of the best friend, the mother, the whatever, and like talking about the tropes and why they're important. I'm not too proud to exploit my birthday, so one of the ones I do is I have a birthday book every year, and I'm like, it's my birthday, go buy my book. The bottom right, the bottom middle is things that people have said about my book series. So if you're doing a book series that's already been out with a new book in it, I go through and be like, here's 4 things that people have said about this world, and like why they love it. So your books make me feel like I have agency in the chaotic world. There was like, why would I read anything but romance? This is a great one for fantasy writers, because I talked to a ton of people, and a lot of them said, especially women, why would I read anything but romance? It's the only genre where women are not fridged and like can realistically hope to have a happy ending. I was like, oh well, like that's the same thing in my books. Like the good guys win in the end, and like the women are not treated like fridged, and you just have to read the book and trust me to find out. But like those kind of things are like, I know there are people in my audience, and that's their hesitation, because I have talked to millions, maybe not millions, thousands of them, and like literally this is what they have said. And things that I have said to get them over that hump, to like, so really if you have something that's already out, like that's a great one. Objections is the other one. So that's the, actually I should have spread that, because that's the bottom right is also objections. So it's like objections, things that they said that stopped them from buying, and like things that like they said once they bought. Are like you can do whole weeks of any of these ideas. Change your offer. I'm not saying to change the reward tiers. What I'm saying is you change the focus. So at the beginning of a campaign, you're usually just like, the book is here, it's amazing, like, go buy it. But after about 5 days, people are like, I get it, it's there, like, what do you? And there's going to be all sorts of other things on your page, like a book box, or maybe it's a complete set on the right side. It was just like, instead of talking about the low-end rewards, I shifted to talking about the more high-end rewards, to move people through that dead zone and get them to up their pledge, because that's one of the parts of this. And then change your audience. Well, I do a lot of backer swaps. I do with other people to just get in front of new audiences. Then at the bottom is just, I decided to talk to the fantasy fans on my list about halfway through this Ichabod campaign. So because like horror audience loves this book, but like it's really a fantasy book. It's like all about monsters and demons and the end of the world and like the savior of salvation. It's like a chosen one narrative book. So after I talked about the horror aspects, it's like, okay, like I don't need to talk about the horror aspects anymore. I'm going to talk now about the fantasy part of these things and the worlds and the monsters and all of this stuff, so that the fantasy people in my audience. So when I say change the audience, oftentimes it's getting in front of nuanced audiences, but it's also about finding the other people in your existing audience and hitting them in different ways, both to make them see what the book is about and also get them more excited to not cancel their pledge until the campaign is, until you have their money at the end of the campaign. Okay, last days. Last days are the last days of the campaign. I know they're not very like cutesy things. They're very much the thing that they are, but that's the kind of person that I am. So last days we want to upgrade people to higher tiers, bring in stragglers with objections, and do maybe one last surprise. So again, that right graph is our Kickstarter book. That end was not necessarily people getting in. It was people upgrading to higher tiers. We had tiers like $100, $300, $500, and if you're doing a good job in the dead zone talking about all of that stuff, people will finally be willing to make a commitment at the end. That's another reason you have to do the work. Because like if you want the bump at the end, you have to, if you want people to buy a $1,000 course on Kickstarter, you've got to spend many hours talking about Kickstarter and why it's important so people feel confident making that decision. I hate when I use y'all as an example, but like, or our books or our courses as an example, but it is very instructive to see we have like 20 hours of stuff for you this weekend. And in doing all of that, by the end of when our launch is, we're hoping people are like, yes, I've heard enough. The same way in your Kickstarter campaign, like if you do all of the messaging, objections, if you're telling people all of the reasons, people will come in at the end, but people will also upgrade who are already in. A lot of people will buy for like $1, or like buy in for $1 at the beginning and be like, I don't know you. Maybe I hate you. Maybe I like you. I don't know. I'm willing to commit $1 right now. At the end, sometimes those people are like jumping up to $400, $500. The other thing we're doing in the last days is trying to get people to not cancel. So you better have done a good job in the dead zone of showing them why this book is really awesome so they don't cancel their pledge because you don't get paid until the end of the campaign. Okay, I am getting towards the end, so I'm hoping I can get questions. Okay, so when I say upgrading, this was a mastermind we just did on Sunday here. Which is the first time I've ever done this, and this is in the past. But we spent 2 or 3 days talking about why you should join us in Vegas for this mastermind that we did. And this added about $4,000 to the campaign. So it cost, I think, $2,000 or $2,500 each. And we had a couple of people upgrade. So only 2 people that upgraded or came in. But like those 2 people were equated for like $4,000 or $5,000 in the total of the campaign. So you can make, while on Amazon you can't do this, it's just not possible unless you have you try and get them to sell the whole series. On Kickstarter, you literally can spend a bunch of time saying, I would like you to do this, why don't you come into this? Like, here's why it's cool. We had a whole series of these books that was like Monica starting to do masterminds, which is a thing that really like, she said took her career to the next level, like being involved in the mastermind. The time limit is over, like, and so anyway, like those are the kinds of things that I'm saying that you can do in the last days to do an upgrade. Also, we were talking about objections. I'm not going to talk about that at a time, but like basically overcoming the objections is the last thing that you should be doing. Because you don't want to say the negative until you've said the positive. So like you're getting the positive people with the, this is why the book is great, and then people that are like, yeah, but like it sounds kind of good, but like I don't like horror. Or it sounds kind of good, but like I'm so sick of like having bad portrayals of mental illness that like I'm not even going to give it a try. So like the last people that come over are the ones that you've done all of the work, and they still have objections. And you're like, there's still the people here. I will talk to people on Friday, I'm very, very sure, who have many, many objections still after I spent them 10 hours talking about this stuff. That's okay. They want to be, people want to be confident in their decision, not just in like that they will like the book, but like they will like you. Which is the big thing about Kickstarter. Like they want to know that they like you, and like they want to support your creative endeavors as well. They want to be on that trolley. So this is where a lot of people mess up with Amazon, because in Amazon it's a $2 book. They're like, yes, I'm going to feed you an ad. If you don't want the book, it's $2. Like I just can't. I got to move on. Like in this scenario, everyone is a potential for $500 to $500. Like you just are going to spend more time and energy loving and doting and talking about the series, because like every time you send that email, it could literally be, I don't know, $1,000 coming into the book. Does that make sense? Thank you. All right, the biggest question, can you finish strong? can take all of those things that you did in the dead zone at the beginning and the end and get it, like add one surprise like this to finish strong. This is we had a book for issue 5 of my Ichabod Jones series, and it was not tracking to fund. I unleashed this, and boom, we moved up to like from unfunded to funded.